So this whole kind of conversation around exposure, I think that's even more the reason why teachers and after school and principals have to partner with businesses, because they can expose your kids in ways that you may not be thinking about.
It's to fall in love with the problems of the world and to realize they have the capacity, that schools don't solve problems, that corporations don't solve problems, that nonprofits don't solve problems, people solve problems. It's human intervention. And so how do we get those kids to really see that in a powerful way that they can change the world?
For us, though, is to create a very simple, very turnkey program that we can say to the industry, to our industry, please go out and find principals, teachers in your local communities that want to engage and see how you can partner and really open the eyes of these young kids to see that there's a vision of a great career, and to have role models, which our employees are. We saw a recent program in New York where we partnered with a Title I school for 3 years, and to hear the kids speak about the impact that the partnership with our ladies and gentlemen has had on their lives has been quite inspiring.
And we talk a little bit about why would businesses support service learning? Like, what's in it for them?
A recent evolution, so I think you sort of two extremes, because State Farm has been so involved with service learning for so long. But for us, as we developed the program that we developed, Succeed Through Service, we developed it around the semester of service, and the first phase culminates in Global Youth Service Day, or week as we're terming it internally. And then it provided us with an opportunity to engage our workforce, our ladies and gentlemen, with the kids, with the students, in helping them identify the issues in the community. For us, we'd always thought about how do we engage our workforce and our guests. We actually have quite a history of working with guests and employees in our communities. So for us, it was for me, I have to say, it was a light bulb going off when I really found out more about service learning. It was, I have to say, 6 months ago, it was a completely new concept for me, and it just made so much sense as being the framework for Succeed Through Service. So I think that's what led it to us. And I look forward as we go through this journey, and I'm going through the journey at the same time as everybody else in our organisation. But I really have a sense of the power just from the principals and teachers and students that we've spoken to that have been involved in service learning.
Themselves. But we've got to change that. We've got to come back. And one of the best ways, in my opinion, to do that is through service learning. Because when you think about service learning, you're turning the community into a resource, and you're allowing young people to see a relevance to what they're doing in the classroom. When I was in school, and I'm the first one to admit this, math was not my subject. The minute they told me when I was in college, I'd taken everything I needed to take, I was a very, very happy person, because I never saw myself standing at a blackboard doing equations. Wasn't going to happen. Now I realize that math teaches critical thinking skills, and there are all these other factors, but nobody ever showed me how I would ever use math in the real world. So I quit the minute they told me I was done, had all my credits that I needed. Well, the bottom line is, for our kids, if we're not showing them how you're going to use what you're doing in the classroom and apply it to something outside of the classroom, they're going to tune out. I mean, all of us did that. I'm a former teacher. I say with great remorse that I would have been a much, much better teacher had I done service learning than I was when I was teaching. I was taught the stand and deliver method. I thought I was incredibly impressive. But I realized that for my kids, I never really let them be part of the process. I had all the knowledge. I gave it to them, asked them to regurgitate it by some pre-designed method in my own head. I never once asked them, do you understand why you're doing what you're doing? And that's what service learning does. When you think about it, you're taking young people and you're letting them be part of the whole solution. And you're showing them that you're actually going to, all this history that you're doing, there's a reason why you need to know that stuff. There's a reason why. So for us as a company, we have had a long, long history for the last 2 decades. Our chairman and CEO has been involved in the whole ed reform movement. And the focus of that for us is to make sure that all of our kids get through school with the skills necessary to get a job and to be part of this global world in which we're living. Well, we're not going to do that by doing things the same way. fundamentally, we have to change the whole way in which we educate our kids. And if you think about it, service learning allows kids to be part of that solution. Incredibly powerful situation when you have young people who are part of the solution. And I'll use one state. Young people, it's a competitive process to get on board. We brought these 30 young people together. I basically said, here's what I'd like to do. And they went off and created the board. We do not weigh in on what they grant. The only time I ever weigh in is if they're going to if they have a question about, is this legal? Other than that, the grants, they totally set up the process. They write their RFPs. They're the ones that make the final decisions. This year, they have $80 million worth of requests for the $5 million they're going to give away. And I can tell you it's an amazing conversation when young people know that they're going to impact communities, and they're going to do it by empowering other young people to make those decisions. The one criteria that I can tell you the Youth Board looks for more than anything else in a grant is whether or not young people were part of writing the grant or going to be part of implementing it. If it was all adults, they won't even look at it because they know that that's not going to do the things that they want to do. So, you know, for an organization, it was a great leap of faith, which the board has more than honored for us. In fact, in the 4 years we've had the board, they have yet to give away their full $5 million. And I can tell you, if someone gave me a $5 million checkbook, I could spend it all. But they are so conscientious about only granting those things that they believe are going to make a change in communities that are youth-led, that they haven't given away their full $5 million yet a year. I have a feeling this year we may get really close with $80 million of requests that they have to look through. But the power of taking young people and saying, what are the issues? First of all, they also identify the issues that they want to grant around. And saying, what are the issues that you think are important in communities? And then empowering other young people in those communities to solve those issues has been amazing. One of my favorite projects was a middle school project. It's in Kansas. And I can tell you from an adult perspective, it was a little odd. But for the young people in this community, it was a rural community, Kansas community that had a feral cat problem. And the young people decided that there was something that they could do to change that. It was causing health issues in their community. They wrote a tremendous grant. And what they wanted to do was to bring the Humane Society in. They wanted to have a sterilization process in place for feral cats to decrease the population. Well, from a State Farm perspective, it was a little different. Hadn't thought about that. But these young people were passionate about it. And the Youth Board granted their grant. And so these were young people in a rural Kansas community, middle school students, who saw a need in their community that they could solve. Now, as they were doing that, they're thinking about health and safety. They were having to use math to talk about some of the numbers that they wanted to decrease. They had to have measurements in place. So they were applying what they're learning in the classroom to these grants. So all of this is just my way of saying that as a middle school teacher, thinking differently about how you address young people and allow them to be part of the process is empowering for you as well. There's a tremendous light that goes on when a young person all of a sudden says, you know, I can do this. You all know that. You know how you feel when that student that's been struggling with something all of a sudden feels good about it. Well, try putting them in charge of changing a situation or taking what they're doing in the classroom and applying it to a community problem if you really want to see those lights go on.